Well, hello, and welcome to the Astrology channel. I am Joe G. I am an astrologer, and off camera, I wear glasses so I can pretend to be Superman. This is my dream. As always, here with my good friend Kyle Pierce.
Hi, Joe. I'm Kyle Pierce. I'm also an astrologer. I do sometimes like to pretend that I'm Steven Seagal, or I wish that I was, because I want to be able to slap people and have them fly across the room.
That'd be so nice, especially right now.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
We've been great. You just
Yeah.
like get out of here. oh, oh man. But anyways, Kyle, what's happening this week?
Yeah. So big week. We got Mars stationing retrograde, long-awaited station. And it's going to station while Mars is Antisha, Uranus conjunct Algol, fun stuff. And Mercury, also retrograde, will oppose Jupiter for the second time, and Venus will enter Aquarius to conjoin Pluto, and the Sun will oppose Jupiter. A lot going on this week.
Yeah,
10th
feels
week.
like grand finales, but also not really.
Also, nothing. It's only the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It's like the cliffhanger before season 2 starts. But on that note, let's take a look at our Monday. As always, Monday is the moon's day. The moon is waxing in Sagittarius. She is peregrine, and Saturn is decadent in terms, moving from a Mercury conjunction towards a Neptune square. It is certainly an interesting day for the moon. I think that it's probably one of the most interesting days we've gotten in a little bit. Because the moon is kind of involved with most planets at the moment. But the biggest thing that I'm sitting with for this day is how the moon is really kind of bringing an exclamation point on the Mercury Jupiter situation that we've been having. And so in the image for today, I had an image that was very similar to Mercury's image last week, because the moon is just moving from that conjunction to Mercury. If you remember, Mercury was carrying a whole bunch of papers, just overwhelmed by the amount of headlines and information that was just getting ready to be proliferated into the news cycle or into the public sphere. Now the moon coming in, she's at the end of Sagittarius where things become a lot more dire and consequential, and she is helping Mercury out, carrying some of these papers. But if you notice, there's some of them that are catching on fire. Maybe it was deliberate, maybe it was not. It's hard to tell. It's this Neptune fog that's being cast. It's just all the smoke and the ash that doesn't let us know. What are these papers that were just burnt? Was that good information? Was that not good information?
Yeah. I'm imagining the figure in the image just like, it's like throwing all the papers in the air. It's like, okay, I read this thing online that said that everything's going to be like this. So I'm all in. Let's go. And the moon feels like if I don't do it now, then the thing is never going to happen. And then finds out that, oh, wait, that news wasn't real. Or like, actually, it's this way. The thing that we were so certain about is not actually true. And the thing that I just bet my life savings on isn't actually, I didn't actually have to do that. And yeah, as like the moon encounters that Neptune square, there's like a sense of like, what the fuck's even going on anymore? I don't know. I'm tired. I don't like this game. I quit.
I think our scores really reflect that. We went with a 3.5 difficulty for today and a 2 utility. The utility is just doing what you can. But Kyle, who is in this mess today?
Mutable signs, and we'll say Cancer always responds to the moon.
Moon babies out here.
Yeah.
Just hold on. You're alive. Theme of the day.
Or let go. Maybe let go too. Yeah.
That's true. That's always an option. But moving on to Tuesday, it is December 3rd. A much anticipated week for Mars. Mars is in Leo, out of element, and Saturn's decadent in Venus's terms. And Uranus is on Tesha and at the station degree. And it's stationing in 3.5 days from this Tuesday.
I actually like this image the more I look at it, because I'm imagining, what his face is going to look like when he turns around. And there's like enough tension in his shoulders to be like, oh, fuck, I don't know if I want him to turn around. And I think that's the overall vibe is with Mars making this Antisha with Uranus. I think I'm going to call them Tishies for now on. Tichy just feels more marketable. So Mars is in this Tishy. I don't know. Now I don't say it anymore. Mars has the Intisha with Uranus conjunct Algol, which can be a little freaky. Mars, Algol. It's kind of like the moment in the horror movie where, you know, the villain is about to walk out the door and you think that the heroes escaped, that like they hid in the closet and like they're not going to be discovered. But then he pauses and there's the like, like, is he gonna turn around? Like, and like, you can tell that you're not going to like what happens when Mars turns around because Mars is pissed. Mars doesn't like to have to turn around, especially when influenced by Uranus conjunct Algol. Patience will be on short supply, I think, for a lot of people. I wouldn't instantly panic, but I'm sure we're going to see some hair-raising temper tantrums be thrown in the world by some people or other. Or you can think about what happened last Mars-Uranus conjunction. Something similar will happen that happened that time.
Yeah, it's a tense time for Mars. It's been a tense time for Mars, but one of the things that spoke to me about Mars and Mars being in Leo is a sense of like loyalty that Mars and Leo can have sometimes. It can be even just loyalty to oneself. Like, I said I was gonna do this and now I just have to fucking do it, sort of thing. And I think that the station retrograde can have a little bit of that. It's like, you promised that you'd do that. Make sure you do it or else everybody's watching you. And so I feel like one of the things that can come today is just the pressure and the tension that will just kind of like simmer of that promise or of that commitment that was made. Yeah, so today, clearly not an easy day. It is a 4 difficulty and a 1 utility. The utility is hold on to your life. The difficulty is a hold on to your life.
Yeah.
But Kyle, who is holding on to dear life today and for the weeks to come?
Who isn't? I mean, no, it's not necessarily everyone. And honestly, even Leo people or other Mars rule people such as Aries or Scorpio aren't necessarily going to be holding on for dear life, but just pay attention to those parts of your life, those areas, and it's probably where you're most likely to feel some of that tension or start to see it brewing.
Well, moving on to our Wednesday, and it's gonna feel like we're just stuck on Wednesday. We're gonna be talking about this for a while. It is Mercury in Sagittarius, soon in sect, changing teams in the moon's Decan and Venus's terms, opposite Jupiter and moving towards a conjunction to the Sun, which we call a Cazimi. One thing that is different about Mercury's situation now than in weeks prior is that Mercury is kind of invisible right now. It's under the beams of the Sun. It's moving towards the Cazimi. If you don't know, it's just the conjunction to the Sun. It's a fancy name for that. I think that the thing that I was really, that really spoke to me about today is the Cazimi that's happening this week and how Mercury is getting ready to switch to the diurnal team. If you don't know, Mercury just flip-flops. Mercury doesn't pick teams. It goes one way, then it goes the other. Who cares? and so with this Mercury day, I was just really sitting with this idea of like Mercury is getting ready to switch teams. And so a lot of the problems that we've had in Sagittarius, they'll still be there. But I think that today is at least a step in the right direction of solving some of that overwhelm. We're starting to sort things and put them in their right place. And so that's why in the image, I just have Mercury sitting in front of this large window where they can have like this really broad view of the land. But at the same time, Mercury is sorting papers. There's a pile that's really neat on one side and a pile of papers that are just going to get scrapped. And we're just not going to move forward with that because in the next week, Mercury will be more in an active mode. And I'm guessing that the information that was deemed worthy will carry on and what wasn't will be left behind. The question is, was some of what was left behind supposed to be left behind?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting way of thinking about it because when Mercury switches teams, when it emerges on the other side of the Sun as a morning rising planet, it's going to re-encounter that T-square with Jupiter and Saturn, which are both diurnal planets. So they're still sort of negotiating and disagreeing and clashing with each other, but it's more of like an inter-party conflict rather than Mercury kind of being a sort of wild outlier. I definitely feel like there is some kind of clarity that's trying to be reached. I don't know if it's going to be clear, but a lot of the bold conclusions that Mercury was proclaiming loudly last month during No Fact Check November. Now it's kind of going back on those things, and it's like, I'm not so sure. Actually, I think it's this. It's still doing a little bit of the, I think it's this, but it doesn't quite know yet. It's on the journey of figuring out that it's wrong. And the Cazimi moment is kind of a moment of like, I see how wrong I was. And now I want to change the way I do things.
For those reasons, we still gave it a fair amount of difficulty for today. We settled at 3.5, but it's a 4 utility. There's a lot that can be done. And I think that that's maybe right now I might just feel like there's not a lot that can be done because Mercury is still under the beams this day. The Cazimi kind of happens in the days following up, but we're definitely moving towards a good direction. But who is moving towards a better direction?
Mutable signs. Well, they're moving towards a new direction. I think that'll be the big theme, I think, of this week is like good, bad. I don't know. But a new one.
Well, mutable signs, hang in there. This whole year has been just mutable galore. You guys are taking us through a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for all of this mutable signs. The bottom.
Well, moving on to December 5th, it is our Jupiter day with Jupiter in Gemini, in detriment in his element, and Mars' decadent in Venus's terms, recently departing from a Mercury opposition in reception and moving towards an opposition to the Sun.
Jupiter is responsible for a lot right now with, Saturn and Pisces, and then this Mercury Cazimi happening today, building up that whole day. It's kind of Mercury Cazimi town. Jupiter's always trying to play like moderator or trying to like bring things to the middle or find the upshot, right? And as we're having to walk back on some of the, the big exciting ideas or the big terrifying ideas that were out there, Jupiter's like, yeah. Like, what does Jupiter and Gemini do? It says, yeah, it's both of those things. It's really terrible for you and it's really awesome for you. And it will be terrible for you next week and really awesome for you next week. And, round and round we go. And that is the great cycle, whatever. I've probably told this story and butchered it a million times, but I feel like what Jupiter in Gemini wants us to know, maybe, is my favorite Taoist allegory is there's a boy in a village and it's his birthday and all the villagers, give him awesome gifts and he gets this awesome horse and everybody says, how amazing, how wonderful that the boy got the horse. And the Buddhist monk says, we'll see. And the next day, the boy goes out riding his horse, falls off the horse, he breaks his leg. Everybody says, oh, how terrible. And the Buddhist monk says, we'll see. And then the boy is laid up, his leg's all broken. But then the army comes and drafts up all the young men in the village to go to war. But he doesn't have to go because his leg's broken. And everybody says, oh, how wonderful. The Buddhist monk says, we'll see. And on it goes. And I think that's the wisdom Jupiter maybe has to offer right now is that, like, we're riding the pendulum, like it's going to swing this way, it's going to swing that way. And, we don't really know if it's going to be good or bad. There's some wisdom to the way Gemini rates. And that's like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't have to be good or bad. It can just be kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think we'll see might be like the theme of the day. That's kind of how I was seeing it too. For the past little while, we've been dealing with Jupiter and Mercury trying to fix this machine that was broken. Jupiter's just trying to get things moving along, but obstacles kept coming. And I think that right now with the Sun opposing Jupiter, we're having like a full Jupiter situation. I feel like now Jupiter and Mercury might have figured out what was wrong and they have fixed the machine that they were working on or fixed the problem that they were trying to solve. But then now the question is like, what's next? This is astrologers like, oh, we'll see what's next moment. Like, yeah, I fixed this thing. I know that there's more that needs to be fixed. I know that there's more that needs to be addressed, but you're kind of like not yet ready to move past the thing that you just sort of accomplished because it feels like you still haven't accomplished it all. There's something that might be missing. You just can kind of tell why, what that is. But yeah, I don't think overall it's not that difficult of a day. We went with a 3.5 difficulty and a 4 utility, same as Mercury's day, because there's a lot of usefulness in being in this in-between space. I think it's like Mercury is not yet ready to publish all of the headlines. Jupiter's not yet ready to get the machine to work, but at least they've set themselves up for that next step. But Kyle, not surprising anybody, who should keep an eye on today?
It's mutable signs.
Oh, wow. What a surprise. Actually, I think we can also add Leo in there today, just because the sun is also involved in the situation. Maybe
Throw a little bit of Leo in there. Sure. Why not?
Yeah, just sprinkle a Leo. All right, let's move on to our Friday. It is Venus in Capricorn, but not for long. In her element, in the sun's decan and Mars's terms, she is critical at the last degree of Capricorn and moving towards a Pluto conjunction. It's really interesting doing horoscopes the way that we do it, because we focus on the planetary days and then we see patterns that we wouldn't see otherwise. And I think that's something that we're seeing with Venus as of lately, because every now and then we'll get this one Friday where Venus is at the very end of the sign. So there's these thresholds that we kind of crossing through Fridays. And so in this week's image, I wanted to call back to the previous sort of threshold that Venus was at, which was in Sagittarius. When she had just left her horse behind, she walked bare feet towards the mountain, and she had decided to climb that mountain. Venus had an awakening about what she wants for her life, or what she wants to build her life upon, all these sort of like long-lasting visions for her future. I think now being at the threshold of Aquarius, we're really at the threshold of that future. It's kind of like that moment where Venus has to take action towards those things that she wants to preserve for herself. And so in the image, I have Venus at the top of the mountain. She can see this city, which will be Aquarius, out in the distance. She sees the gap that she has to cross, but she's determined. I feel like with the Pluto thing, there is this strong determination to get to that place. But I think that the point of contention that I have with today, or just with Venus and Pluto and being at that threshold, is that there can be like a let's win at all costs, or let's preserve this at all costs sort of thing with Venus. Yeah, I think that just raises a point of caution around crossing these thresholds and the methods that we might resort to preserve
Everything we built together.
that we have. Yeah.
You know, she's built so much in Capricorn, and like sort of coming to the end of that journey, and she's about to like step outside and encounter Pluto. It's kind of like, looks to me like Venus like sort of casting aside everything that she's built, her, you know, their high paying corporate job, and running off with her biker boyfriend to go do meth in the desert. Like it's definitely like it's a big flip. And it makes me a little sad because like Venus in Capricorn has been this kind of steady like force that's kind of been just outside of everything. Like, you know, just go to work. Like there's lots to enjoy. Just, you know, being responsible. But Venus is like, nah, I'm not going to be. Being responsible is for lame wads. Let's go do meth in the desert.
It almost kind of gives me a bit of a flashback to Venus and Scorpio when we were having that whole Mars-Venus trine situation. It was dangerous, but it was exciting. I feel like now it's just dangerous. It's a little less exciting and a lot more danger.
It's like Venus and Scorpio, but it's like, wouldn't it be hot if we just put bags over each other's heads and just pretended like we didn't exist while we fucked? No lose. Then.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. It is interesting because it will also be like the Antisha. Venus is going through the Antisha points of that whole Scorpio journey. There's definitely some interesting stuff to maybe remember or recall that was happening at around that time, which is why it's 4.5 difficulty. Not so much because of today specifically, but like between today and next Friday, things are gonna get a little weird for Venus, so keep that in mind. And utility is a 2.5, and the utility is just, you know, hold on to dear life like Mars.
Yeah.
This is a very hold on to dear life moment that we're having. Well, we should pay extra attention to this.
I mean, definitely Aquarius, Leo, and then Venus ruled people, so Taurus and Libra. I don't usually like give this kind of specific advice, but like I kind of feel like this is a stay-home night for people. Maybe next Friday too. That's just my advice.
Yeah, it's not like be fearful, but be careful, you know? Well, moving on to Saturday, a little bit better actually. It is Saturn in Pisces, out of element, Peregrine in Jupiter's decadent terms, separating from a Mercury square, and soon being received by the moon through a conjunction.
I feel like Saturn's in an interesting position right now. And the way Saturn tends to react to things it disagrees with is kind of being a bummer or being a downer or like saying no. And there's like a protest almost that I think Saturn is speaking to, or just a kind of everything's terrible kind of mindset that it can speak to, especially with the moon being there, which can actually like be helpful because the moon does pretty well in Pisces. There's some like reception. There's some like everything's terrible. Like here's some ice cream. Here's some, how do I live with the world being terrible? There's wisdom for Saturn, I think, when it comes to living with the world being terrible, which is that it's not all terrible. It's just some of it is. The story for Saturn right now is that the moon's kind of bringing is like just sort of abiding. Like Saturn and the moon have that quality in common of just different modes of abiding. Like I'll, find what there is to eat here, whatever there is around, says the moon. Saturn says, well, I'll just, eat whatever garbage I can find and not die. Different levels of preference maybe, or willingness to endure difficulty. I think there's, through like all the mutable madness themes that we have going on, Saturn can't necessarily change or fully fact check everybody right now, tell them exactly what is, but it can endure through it and kind of recognize that that there is a tide and a sort of swing to things, that things might suck now. Doesn't mean that they always suck forever. Like this is going to be a really good character development.
I think that's also the theme that I was sitting with, just kind of getting used to the new rules, getting used to the new environment. Like you don't like it, but you kind of just have to. And that's what I had in the image, because last week we had Saturn coming to have an audition with the Queen and the King of Pisces. They had a little conversation, they had their thing, and it was a little more combative because we're dealing with the square, but then now the moon actually comes in and receives Saturn in this space, and that's what I have in the image. It's just the moon bringing in the new terms and regulations that Saturn has to abide to. And I was really drawing on that because of the Mercury square. It was like, this is how things should be done, sort of thing, or else. But I don't know. You guys know how positive I am about the moon and moon receptions. I think the moon just has this ability to make things comfortable even when they're not entirely ideal. I think that's the thing that's happening here. It's just the moon giving like, hey, these are the new rules and regulations, but like, if you want to do your weird stuff, do your weird stuff, just don't talk about it. And for those reasons, we actually gave today a fair bit of utility. It's a 2 difficulty and a 3.5 utility. I think the difficulty are just these restrictions and the rules that one has to follow. But the utility is being able to go a little in the dark and break the rules.
And go home.
As long as you're not like doing anything illegal.
Yeah.
We're not promoting illegalities out here, but
I will answer the question of who is affected by this. But first, I have one last morsel of wisdom for you. Under almost all circumstances, not all, but most, regardless of what's happening in the world, like what you get to do inside your own home is usually kind of the same. Like you kind of get to do your own thing there. So there may be being comfort to be found in that. You can do a lot of things that you can't do outside under a blanket. So
yes.
Yeah. But anyway, mutable signs, yeah, so it's all mutable. But also, I'm actually interested in Aquarius right now, in Capricorn for sure.
Well, closing our week, it is Sunday, December 8th. The sun is in Sagittarius in his element, in the moon's decadent in Venus's terms, and an opposite Jupiter. It is a full Jupiter day. Happy full Jupiter. It's really nice to have, at least where we are out here currently, the sun is rising just as Jupiter is setting. So it's kind of like having that full Jupiter kicking off the day. And I think that that's really nice. I think you guys have noticed that this week is like not the easiest one, but I think that today is a bit of a change. There is a lot to look forward to with this Jupiter opposition. I do have some question marks and red flags around certain things, but I think the biggest gift of this is just the sense of optimism, determination, focus, and like really being able to know like where you're heading towards now. So I think that the big vibe of the day is just that sort of like, hey, like we're here. Nice. Let's go. Now, my red flags of the day are, if you see in the image, and you kind of just remember that the story that I've been telling for the sun is that sun went in the cave, sun lost everything, lost the kingdom, lost all of that. It came out of the Scorpio cave wielding a sword, super stoked, and like, now I know who I am, I know what I'm fighting for, sort of thing. Still no kingdom, still no crown, still no nothing, but at least you know that that's what you want to fight for. I think today's a little bit similar to that, but now we actually get to see, like in the image, the kingdom in the distance. It's like, that is the thing that I want to conquer. I'm gonna go there. And I'm raising my sword, the light is fucking shining on it. I'm feeling like just awesome. Let's go and conquer it. But that city has people living in there. There's things that are happening there that do not need the sun to like put his finger in. Maybe the sun could make certain things better, but it will make certain things better as the sun sees fit. And I think that that's sort of the cautionary thing of today. Just be careful that your version of making something better is not gonna hurt a whole bunch of other people in the process.
Wise words, Joji. I would say some of the things that we're trying to make great may not be everybody's version of great, perhaps. But the sun certainly right now, I think, feels like the shit, right? I kind of like this full Jupiter theme, and I feel like the full Jupiter is very much like, yeah, like do it for the plot, bro. Like it'll be a good story either way. And the sun's like, hey, yeah, I'm like the shit though, right? And like I'm about to fucking rock this city. I'm gonna make it so great. I'm gonna so win. And Jupiter's kind of like, yeah, okay, like have fun, knowing that it's like has the bigger picture, maybe doesn't necessarily have wise words other than like, well, we'll see. It should be interesting. Like you need the main character to be really invested in the outcome so that it's that much more gut wrenching and awesome when they fail and fall on their face and like have to like pull themselves together and brush themselves off the dirt. Good story. Sucks to like live through, but like good stuff. So, you know, if you're in that scenario, like, or you're anticipating terrible outcomes, just like do it for the plot. The gods will rejoice when they watch you fail. And when you get back up again, they'll be even happier. And maybe they'll even let you succeed this time. So, you know, hang in there.
Yeah, with all that said though, like I know that we focused on the red flags of today, but I think that today is not a difficult day. And I think that's like the two difficulty that we gave is the fact that there's not that much difficulty, because when you're just like uninhibited, then you can do whatever. You might tend to go a little wild, and that's the difficulty.
Yeah.
Don't go wild, be mindful. And there's a lot of utility today. It's a 4 utility, so use that wisely. It's really nice to close the week in such a good note. Kyle, who is conquering today?
Sagittarius probably feels like it. I don't know about Leo, though. Leo wants to conquer, but maybe feels a little thwarted.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, this is our week, guys. Let's take a look at our weekly glass. On Monday, papers are getting burned. The moon is trying to save some of them. But is she saving the right ones? Question mark.
Tuesday, the villain looks like he's about to walk out the front door, but he stops suddenly, and he's about to turn around, and I think he's gonna be really mad. So run or hide.
Oh, man. Yeah, I hear that. On Wednesday, Mercury's kind of a little... What am I saying?
That's it. That's exactly it.
That is it, actually. That is it. What is Mercury doing today? No one knows.
Jupiter says to Mercury, "Oh, very interesting." Regardless of whatever bullshit.
Pretend to
Mercury says.
understand what
Yeah,
Mercury is.
pretends, nods knowingly, and says, "Yes." That'll be fun.
On Friday, Venus is crossing thresholds and getting ready for some battles. Some that she might be choosing because it seems interesting. Maybe she shouldn't, though.
Saturn is learning, the lesson that even though everything feels really terrible and awful and the world totally sucks right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that is like that for forever.
On Sunday, the sun is feeling real good. It's feeling like it can win everything and conquer everything. Should it? That's a important question to address.
Get out your popcorn. Watch.
Oh, yes.
It's the
It's gonna
show.
be a movie, that's all right. All right, let's look at our utility and difficulty ratings for this week. It clearly looks like things are pretty steep in difficulty from Monday to Friday, but things really take a step back over the weekend, so it's nice to have a nice weekend break. And despite having a difficult week overall, Wednesday and Thursday are pretty useful days to get stuff done. So are Saturday and Sunday. So use those days wisely.
Yep. And you end up giving it an average of about 3.5 difficulty and 3 utility, which doesn't tell the whole story, but, overall the sense is that it's overall more of a difficult week than an easy one. So just, hang in there and enjoy the show. It's difficult, but with director's commentary and popcorn.
Well, if you would like to get a reading with me, I am Joe G, and I'm at themercuryrising.com.
And if you'd like to get a reading with me, I'm Kyle Pierce at kylepierceastrologer.com.
All right.
See you next week.
Right, man.